Hi, if you're watching this, you have probably purchased a to-go kit. Just make sure that you have a lot of fun, that you are taking your time, and remember that I've sped things up, so make sure that you pause, take your time, and yeah, most of all, enjoy. We are going to start off with the background colour. You need about 2/3 yellow, 1/3 green, and then a little splash of white. That's going to give you a nice earthy green colour for the background. Mix that all together and you are ready to go. So to start painting the background, we are simply going to fill in everywhere that is not the chicken, the egg, or the chick. Now you are going to see some of these brush strokes, so just be aware of the direction that you're painting in. That's not to say that you can't go up, down, left, right, just that you will be able to see the brush strokes. So if you're conscious that you want them to all be facing one direction, just bear that in mind. I am mainly using the larger brush, but you'll notice when I start getting into areas that are slimmer that I might change brush. Just do whatever you feel more comfortable with, and if you feel more comfortable going into the tighter spots with a smaller brush, that's certainly okay. Next, we're going to start on the egg. So we're going to take some of that like dark bluey teal colour, and we don't need too much because it's only for the egg, so we're going to take a little bit of that, probably half and half with the white, mix that up to make a nice bluey light teal colour, and we're going to paint the whole of that egg. Now you should be able to still see the lines that you're going to paint and the detail on the egg through the paintbrush marks, so don't be afraid to cover these up. Your coat shouldn't be so thick that you can't see the pencil marks through. Once you're happy with that, we are going to start on the, what are you saying? The chicken's head? The thing on top of the chicken's head? We're going to mix red and white to make a pink. This is just a base coat. We are going to go back over this with red later. So the shading isn't too important, but red does tend to be quite a see-through colour, and we want a nice solid red. So we're going to paint a base layer of pink. Definitely use the smaller brush for this. Make sure that your curves are the right angles, that you're happy with it. Spread those paint strokes out and completely cover the chicken's head here. So you can go ahead, wash your paintbrushes off at this point. We are going to start with the chicken's main body. So we're going to do a little bit of black, a lot of white. You want it to be a dark enough grey that you can definitely tell it's grey, because we are going to do some lighter things on top of it later, but you don't want it to be so dark that you're not going to see like the eyeball and things like that. So you're going to make a nice medium grey, and then continue to fill in the whole of that chicken body. You do not need to do the chicken's wing, and you can leave the chicken beak as well. Again, you can use any paintbrush for this that you feel more comfortable with. I would start with the bigger one, and then for the bits that are a little bit of a tighter space, you can use the smaller one if you feel more comfortable. So now that the body's done, we are going to go ahead and paint that wing. So with the grey that we just used, we're going to add some more white to it to make a lighter grey to go into that wing colour. And now it's important as well that we're going to use this for the dots on the body. I realised here that it actually wasn't as light as I would like it, so I added a little bit more white. But you do need to make enough that you've got some for later. So do save this paint colour. We're going to go back to it later, but you're just going to fill solid colour in that wing. Again, any paintbrush that you feel more comfortable with, but a nice medium paintbrush, larger paintbrush should be fine. So we're going to go on to the grass now. We're going to leave that chicken to dry. We're going to mix a bit of that green, the brighter green that we have, and we're going to mix in a little bit of red. Now this is literally a dab of red. You don't want it to be too red. It's just going to darken up that green a little bit, make it a little bit browner. And this is going to be for the detail of the grass. So whenever that's all mixed in, you're going to do the grass in strands of 2s and 3s. So I like to put my paintbrush at the bottom and then flick up, so flick of the wrist, and then that should make it have a pointed edge. So at the bottom and flick the wrist and just do one paint stroke. And then I'm doing dabs of 2 and dabs of 3. These can be any way you feel like it, just make sure that they are completely surrounding the chicken, the egg and the chick, so they are all over. Don't forget that you can do above the chicken as well. Okay, so grass is done. The chicken should be dry enough now that we're going to go back to it to put the detail on. So this time we're going to use the end of that brush. We're going to dip it in that light grey, the same colour that was on the wing, and we are just going to use it as a stamp. So we're using the back of the paintbrush as a stamp to stamp round dots onto the chicken. Again, you can have as many dots or as little spots as you want on your chicken. I go for quite a heavy dotted chicken here. You can certainly do less. I wouldn't recommend doing too many and completely covering it. You want to still see that dark grey coming through. But yeah, whatever you feel more comfortable with. Okay, so that chicken is looking well and dotted. We are going to go on to now putting some spots onto that wing. So I'm just going to use white here. You can use it straight from the little tub you have, if not some that you might have on your palette. And again, the back of the brush, make sure it's been cleaned off and it hasn't got that grey on it anymore. You're going to dip it straight into the white paint and then straight onto that wing. You can normally do 2 or 3 before you need to load some more paint up on there. The less paint, the smaller the dot will be, so just bear that in mind. We're now going to go on to the detail of the egg. This is just using white again, and definitely the smaller brush that you have. Now again, you should be able to see the lines through a little bit. If you can't, look at the picture and go from there, but you've got straight lines. Really take your time and concentrate on getting those as even as you can. You can go over them a few times. You'll notice that I go from top to about middle, as far down as I can comfortably, and then I go from bottom to up. And that's just so I can see that I'm meeting the edge of the egg, that I've got everything where I need it to be before I continue that line on. So to put the little dots in the middle of the lines, I actually just use the paintbrush part of the paintbrush, but you can definitely turn it around and use the back of the paintbrush, the handle again, if you want like perfect dots. But I just use the very tip of the paintbrush and just very lightly dabbed. And then I'm just going back over the lines, making sure that I'm really happy with everything that I've done so far. the squiggly lines, just make sure that you're really taking your time. There is definitely no rush. This is definitely the hardest bit of the painting. So really push yourselves to try and make sure that you're happy with it. And hey, mine's not exactly even anyway, so even if yours isn't, it's just like mine. You'll notice some of my wiggles are wider than the other, some are longer than the others. It's all part of like the folk art kind of look. Just make sure that you're really taking your time and doing your best, and that's all we can do. So just continue those white lines across, up and down, wiggles and dots over the whole of the egg until you're happy with it. Make sure you're looking over bits that you've already done, and yeah, continue to do exactly what you've done, just the whole way over the egg. We're going to move on to the chick now. So we're going to take some of that yellow with probably 50-50 between the yellow and the white. You want it to be a decent colour on that yellow. You don't want it to be too pale because you are going to make the wing lighter. So make sure that there is enough of that yellow pigment in there to really stand out. But whatever shade of yellow you're happy with, and then you're just going to go ahead and fill in that little yellow chick. Cover the wing, cover the eye, we're going to go over those anyway. So once I did start painting here, I did start to think, hang on a minute, I think I'm missing something. And I did in fact add a little bit of red to that yellow just to warm it up a little bit and make it stand out from that green. I did forget to do that, but it's just a drop of red. You don't want it too orangey, but you are going to warm that yellow up a bit. Okay, so now that I'm happy with that yellow shade, I'm now going to fill in that colour for that chick. But that is a good example of how if you're not happy with something, don't worry about it. The best thing about acrylic painting is that everything covers. So if you don't like something, wait for it to dry, cover it again. Now that the most of the main detail is done, I'm going to go in with that small brush and just get all of the little details so I can make a really crisp line for the chicks like tail feathers and get the area that I want exactly how I want. So now taking a part of that pure bright red, we're going to go over the chick's top feathers to make sure that it's a nice bright red. So no mixing for this red, just straight red, and then really take your time to cover that pink and make that red really stand out. From here, we're going to take some black, just straight black, no mixing again, the back of the paintbrush, dip it in the black, and then we're just going to do one simple dot, and then I pressed down and wiggled it a tiny bit, like barely wiggle, just made sure that the paint was really down there to make sure that I had a bigger dot for the chicken than I did the chick, but I did the chick's eye and the chicken's eye. So taking a small amount of yellow and a bit of white, we're going to make a nice light yellow, pale yellow for the chicks and the chickens features that we have left. So we've got the legs, we've got the beak, and we've got the little chicken's wing. So definitely use your small brush for this one. Again, take your time. This is the very finishing details. So just make sure that you're finishing this to the best of your ability. And then don't forget you've got the little chick's legs down there as well. So just two little straight lines will do for the chick's legs. Just make sure again that you're getting the tiny little lines, taking your time. For the chicken's legs, I'm going to go one straight down leg, and then we're going to add some feet in there as well. So the straight down legs, and if you can see, my legs are by no means straight, so don't worry about getting that straight line, like crazy straight, but do take your time. Then we're going to add in some feet. So we're going to go 1, 2, and 3. And I start out and then take it towards the leg for the first couple, just to make sure that I know where that leg is and that they're joint, and then just go over everything and make sure that you're really happy with it. Now, in an ideal world, I would wait for this chick to dry a little bit more before adding the colour on top, but for the purpose of the video, I'm going to continue. You want a nice round little chicken arm in there, so again, tiny brush for this one works well. You're just going to add some of that light yellow onto that chicken, or that little chick rather, and give him a nice fluffy wing. Now, taking that same light yellow colour, we're going to turn over the very smallest brush, so tiny dots this time. We're going to use the handle, the back of the brush, dip it in that light yellow and put some little dots on that chick. Then taking the back end of the brush, and this time just some white paint, we are going to add some little dots onto that wing. So light yellow dots on the body of the chick and white dots on the wing. Now, I've just realised at some point I managed to put a bit of that darker green, it must have been on my arm, and I have moved it onto the grass. So I'm just going to add a little bit of green in there and kind of wash it down to blend it in. Normally I would have noticed that kind of thing earlier, and we could have taken it off with a little bit of damp water, but it was fully dried on there. So I'm just going to take a little bit of green and yellow, mix that green color again and try and match it and cover it up. But another good example of the best thing about acrylics and canvas is if it goes wrong, just cover it up. And there we have it. We are completely finished with our cute folk art Easter canvas.